guys, Tim Horan and Dan Carter here, both investors and ambassadors of Brick Lane Brewing. And Dan, good to have you here in Australia for a little while.
Yeah, you too, Timmy. Good to be here.
Now, tell me, Rugby World Cup's around the corner, and you've played in 4 Rugby World Cups. What was your best experience on the field out of those 4 Rugby World Cups?
It's hard to go past my final match for the All Blacks, which was the 2015 World Cup, against a team you're pretty familiar with, the Wallabies.
The Wallabies were unlucky, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, but I don't know, just having played so many games, 112 test matches, 4 different World Cups, to have the fairy tale finish that I did. It's, often in sport you don't get to finish on your own terms, but to help the ABs win back-to-back World Cups, to have such a pivotal role in that was a dream come true to finish on my terms.
Had you announced before that Rugby World Cup that was going to be your last tour or last time in the All Blacks jersey?
Yeah, so 2011, I thought that was going to be my last World Cup. Yeah. I was at my prime, I was 28 years old. I was like, right, in my home country, this is going to be it. Yep. And then, try a new challenge overseas. Drastic injury, got injured and got ruled out of the World Cup halfway through it. And that moment, I signed a 4-year contract to have one last crack at a World Cup. Yep. So it was my 4th one.
And what age were you going into the 4th World Cup?
33. So if you're still playing your 30s,
you've done it right.
Everyone's kind of looking at you going, okay.
I actually remember you running out, might have been the semi-final with the walking stick and that.
I did, mate. I had my knee heavily strapped. I was just being held together, but it all went well. And just, I don't know, just to finish, my career on that note. And the previous 3 World Cups for me personally weren't good experiences. I achieved a lot through my career, but to finally be part of the AB's creative history, winning back-to-back World Cups, which none of the team's done, it was such a highlight.
Because you would have got a medal in 2011, but obviously you didn't miss out in those last couple of games. So, what was it like receiving the medal in 2015 and realising that you're a big part of that team?
No, it was.
You didn't give yours away like Sonny Bill.
No, I didn't. I didn't. No, I really held on to that one because I received one in 2011. And I still felt a part of that team, which was great, but there was just something missing, and that was me being out there in the final. So to be able to be there in 2015, it was a very special moment for me and my family. I mean, you've played in 3 World Cups yourself. You must have some pretty fond memories. Is there one World Cup or one moment that sticks out for you?
Yeah, probably. Lucky enough, in 1991 we had the old guards of Nick Farr-Jones and Liner and Campese and Port Evans, all those household names that. And I was only a young 21-year-old with my teammate Jason Little, and we grew up together and played all this sport together. So to probably have play with Jason on the field for those 6 or 7 games that we played, and I think probably on the field beating the All Blacks. I think it might have been the first time outside of Australia or New Zealand at Lansdowne Road in Ireland, in Dublin.
Is that where Campo scored in the corner?
Campo scored to the left-hand side. Yes. I think we probably. And that was his pass over the shoulder.
Man, I still remember that. It broke my heart. Absolutely broke my heart, you guys.
It was funny because I often get asked about that try all the time about did you know Campo was going to throw the pass, and I had a fair idea when I was tracking behind him that when any player got close to tackling Campo, he'd just chuck the pass somewhere. He was scared of getting tackled, so I knew it was coming somewhere.
Especially a big. Big Kiwi, running at Campo.
Yeah, just chuck it
away.
So probably that on the field, and then, being part of '95 Rugby World Cup in South Africa was pretty special. With the hype that Nelson Mandela, how he used sport and used rugby to unite the country. Yeah. That was special.
When did you guys finish that?
We got knocked out quarter-final by England. Rob Andrew field goal.
Oh yes. So, it's amazing how field goals have determined so many World Cups. I don't know about the Wallabies, but us Kiwis, it's not something that we religiously sort of work on.
Well, I remember your field goal in I think it was the final.
Yeah.
You're about probably 41 metres out and you went back to your left and slotted it. And we don't see you normally kick a lot of field goals.
No, I hadn't kicked many, but it was a key moment in that game. The Wallabies had all that momentum back, and just felt like we needed to get the momentum back after Ben Smith yellow card, couple of quick tries to the Wallabies. So that was a perfect opportunity. Spur of the moment.
I was going to ask you, is it something you go, okay, the next 5 minutes I'm going to try for a field goal? You just got the ball and went, now's my opportunity?
We've been trying to set one up actually before then, and there's something didn't happen, and I had Nonu yelling at me, take the field goal, take the 3 points, the drop goal.
Tired, mate, tired of running.
I don't know, but if you've seen Mar in person, he's actually quite a scary bloke. So when he's telling you to take a drop goal, you take it. So the next moment I just snapped one and. Thankfully, it sailed through the post.
I suppose my, the greatest memory that I had was when we won in 1999 to have, my wife in the crowd, Dad was there as well, and just to be able to do that lap of honour as you've done, and you want everyone to slow down and take as long as you can to do that lap of honour and show everyone the World Cup. And I remember just hugging my wife, hugging Dad, and then seeing, probably my greatest memory is of supporters is we nearly finished the lap of honour, and then there was 3 Australian backpackers, and they yelled out to me, and I went across the World Cup and gave them all a hug, and they just hugged me and they were in tears, and they said, we worked for 10 months around the world to save up some money to buy a ticket to watch the Wallabies win the World Cup. And all those little moments where you have supporters from, and there's All Black supporters all around the world, Wallaby supporters, I think all around the world, which are pretty special where they're watching the game.
Yeah, very special moment. You did well. Jeez, 2 World Cups and competing in only 3. I don't know many people can match that. Were there many Wallabies that
I think there was 5 Wallabies at the time, so it would have been John Eales, myself, Jason Little, I think Phil Kearns, who played in 91 and also 99. Yeah.
Did you understand when you were playing how significant that was to get 2 World Cups in your career, or was it more something that into your career you kind of look back on and
I think
how special that was?
I think in 91 winning that World Cup and realising when we brought the cup to Australia and we took it to every school, every country rugby club, and all these kids, that the lift in junior rugby was massive.
Yeah.
So to win it 8 years later, I knew the enormity of winning a second World Cup, but for everyone else, bringing the World Cup back to Australia. For us, the sporting landscape in Australia is pretty competitive, so we needed that lift. It was pretty special.
Yeah, it's very different to New Zealand, where we're absolutely rugby mad.
Yeah.
I still remember when I was 5 years old, as the inaugural Rugby World Cup. Actually, I thought you were playing the '87 World Cup.
Jeez, I'm not that old,
mate. Winding you up there, but that's when I wanted to be an All Black. I wanted to play, and I saw it again in 2011.
Yep. And were you? So you're 5 years old, and where are you watching it? At home with mum and dad?
At home, mum and dad on the TV, watching JK score a length of field tries
against Italy.
Yeah, it was incredible. I was like, right, from that moment, I was like, that's my dream, is to play for the All Blacks, and it had such an impact on the country. And then in 2011, I saw it as well. It had a huge impact of having the Rugby World Cup in New Zealand, and just the kids, they wanted to implement their heroes, the All Blacks, and that was the start of many young kids getting into rugby.
Yeah. What about, if let's move our focus a bit to this Rugby World Cup? The All Blacks, they're number 1 in the world. Slipped for about 2 weeks. They weren't number 1. Whilst took it over. Where do you see, if there's going to be a hiccup for the All Blacks during this World Cup? Where do you see it? Is it the Springboks, the first pool game?
That first pool game is hugely important, and talking to some of the Springbok players, they've been targeting this game, for the last 12 months, and they've actually upset the All Blacks, beating them at home and drawing with them over the past sort of 15 months. So they're going to be a huge threat. And if you fast forward to the playoff stages, where they'll both, they'll both get through, it determines whether you play Ireland or Scotland. I don't know which team that they'd want to be playing against. So that first game is huge.
Do you think that, my view is that I think potentially there might be a team that loses a pool game but then still goes on to win the Rugby World Cup, whether that's the Springboks, whether that's in England, or whether that's the All Blacks, because it's going to be such a tight competition. Maybe 6, maybe 7 teams realistically can win this Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the closest World Cup we've had in a long time. I think the international landscape has changed a lot from where it was a couple of years ago, where you'd say, England, All Blacks, and just the competition that's out there. It's it's exactly what you want leading into the cup. But at the end of the day, you're only guaranteed 4 games, 3 round robin stages, and you start looking further than that. Even though like South Africa and the All Blacks, I'll be confident in their pool to make that quarter final. They can't start looking any further than that.
Yep. And what about, where do you see for us, for the Wallabies? I mean, we had a great performance against the All Blacks in Perth a few weeks back, and then 6 days later you deflated us at Eden Park. I mean, my view is I think the Wallabies have probably got 2 games in them, like the Perth game against the All Blacks, and whether that's, you got to pull that out against Wales, you've probably got to pull that out in your quarter final. Yeah. But for the Wallabies to go deep, they have to beat Wales and Fiji early to get a good position in the quarter final, and then. I mean, probably, in my view, the quarter-final is your biggest game in Rugby World Cup, because then you get positioned semi-final and final, you can get yourself up for it. So I think Michael Checker's got, and Michael Hooper's got this team ready to go, and they'll scare a few teams, I think. Yeah,
well and truly. I'd never write the Wallabies off. They show what they're capable of in Perth, and they would have got huge learnings from the following week. And a lot of that is about the mental side of sport, and just how a little dip can make a huge difference in the result. And we saw something similar happen in 2015, where they beat us in Sydney, and then the following week we scored them up a little bit, and then they learned from that. And then as the World Cup went on, they just grew in momentum, grew in confidence, and obviously we saw them there at the end. So I think they would have taken a lot about the mental side of Test match rugby. When you're playing at a World Cup, you actually need to be switched on for those key games.
What about, we're both going to Japan, going to spend a bit of time over there. I'll do a bit of commentary and you'll do a bit of work over there as well. We're going to try and find a brick lane somewhere in Tokyo, at a bar somewhere.
Mate, we'll ship some in, 100%.
What are you looking forward to off the field in Japan right through? I mean, the tournament's going to be well supported by all the nationalities, but the Japanese people, you've played in Japan, are they looking forward to this Rugby World Cup, and how will they interact with the fans?
Yeah, they are. Living and playing in Japan at the moment is, it's very different in terms of the culture to most sort of rugby nations. So it's going to bring a new element, and I'm really looking forward to see how they interact with the rugby-loving nations all coming to their country. And they're very proud in their culture, the Japanese. They're so polite, respectful.
So how's your Japanese since you've been there?
Yeah, it's awful. It's been 3 years trying to learn French.
Have you got a couple? Give me a little bit. You say you went to France and played. Now you're in Japan. What's your bit of French or Japanese?
Oh, it's French. Yeah. Well and truly.
Give me a little bit of Japanese. What do you got for me?
Konnichiwa. Watashi wa denkata desu. Genki.
Yeah, there you go. Is that would help you brick lane?
Actually, I've got to learn that before I get up there. Yeah.
Tell me, Dan, we're both going to Tokyo and right throughout Japan for Rugby World Cup. Who do you think's going to win the Rugby World Cup, and why?
Yeah, it's a lot of teams that are got to compete for the World Cup. I'm really worried about sort of the Wallabies, England, after what happened at the last World Cup. They've got players in their squad that had that disappointment, and I know after 2007. It really hurt, and it gave us the motivation to go all the way to 2011. But you can't go past my All Blacks.
Has Steve Hansen got the team?
Yeah, I think they've got the talent there. They're still working on a couple of combinations, but as the World Cup goes, they will build a momentum, get a better understanding of their best 15, and the management group is what makes it for me. They've been there, they've done that. They were there in 2015. Steve Hansen's going to his 5th World Cup, so he's got the experience. He knows what it takes to win a World Cup. Yeah,
he might be the third, or win the first coach to win 3 in a row if he can do it.
Yeah, fingers crossed he'll go well. And yourself?
I mean, my pick for Rugby World Cup, I think England are going to be very hard to beat. Eddie Jones, the way he's coached this team and got them prime. Manu Tuolangi, who plays in the centre for England, if he's fit all the way through the tournament. Also Aaron Farrell. Springboks are going to be hard to beat. That first pool game against the All Blacks is going to be cracking, and then the Wallabies are just dark horses. If they can get through to the quarter final, upset someone in the quarter final, get to the semi. The Wallabies, I think, have got 2 really good games in them, and they've just got to pull them out at the right time. So it's going to be a cracking tournament.
Yeah, can't wait. Cheers, Timmy. Thanks for inviting me over to Australia. Looking forward to seeing you in Japan over a beer, mate. So I'm sure we'll be able to find a wee brick lane over in Japan to enjoy together.